Hello. I'm still waving. I moved to California. I moved to San Diego and yeah, haven't picked up the vlog camera. I was gonna say this year, but I vlogged in Mexico, right? That's the last time I saw you. And then after Mexico, I literally spent that Friday or that Saturday after I got back packing up my office and moving my life across the country for the third time. And I am now in San Diego. I'm picking up a camera again because yesterday I finally hung the last painting. I unboxed the last box a couple days ago, and then I had so many paintings and pictures, and I hung them all in the last few days. You can see this is my office, though it is a work in progress. I have so many dreams about how I'm going to kind of make this a England-inspired literary type of writer's office. So wallpaper, new rug, lots of things. So I will show you that when it's like all done. So this is just kind of like in a holding pattern. I mean, I'm keeping like the pictures and the couch, though different pillows are coming. These plaid blankets are new, inspired by my trip to England, which I'm wearing one of my shirts, my bunny shirt. I am so excited to be here. So I thought I would just very quickly pop in, say hello, and answer a couple questions because I've moved across the country 3 times. And a lot of people had a lot of questions this time about it. I mean, I don't know how many people are actually planning to move across the country, but it is a little bit different than when you're moving kind of within the state that you're living in. So I thought I would share what I've learned moving across the country for 3 times in case it is helpful to anyone. I am not an expert, and I'm definitely not the person you want to seek out if you're like, what's the cheapest way I can do it? That is not how I operated, and I'm very grateful that I didn't have to operate that way. The way I've moved across country is figuring out what is the way I can do it that makes me least completely fall apart. So I prioritized as much convenience as possible so that I could do it without having too many mental breakdowns. And I don't think I actually had really any from this last move. So that's great. I've learned a lot. But in general, I think because I prioritized that, I never had like overly stressful moments aside from the stress you cannot avoid when you're moving, right? But I try not to add any additional stress onto that is kind of how I always think about it. So a bunch of you asked me questions, so I kind of consolidated them into the most frequently asked ones. So I'm just gonna kind of answer those, and I'm gonna see if I can do it from my desk. So I'm gonna see if I can get a little setup here going. I'll be right back. Okay, this will work for now. This is where I work from home every day. You can see some of my paintings up here. This one is a charcoal done by an artist named Brittany Van Ness, who's also my friend. She's in a show right now in California, and I just think she's wonderful, and I love this so much. So this was behind me in my Florida office, and now it is back again, and I loved seeing it so much. And then a coworker commented on this signed May poster in our meeting literally today, and it made me so happy. I don't come across a lot of people who like know and get and love May. It's, 20-year anniversary of this album Everglow, but when someone does, I'm just like, yep, we're friends. We're gonna be friends. Everyone probably has those albums where you're like, if you meet someone who like loves that album deeply, you just know you're gonna like each other. You're gonna be friends. I guess that's kind of one of those special things about art and music and all of it. Anyway, my questions you all asked me about moving across the country, so I'm just gonna run through them. Someone asked kind of like, how do you choose a moving company? So I chose one in my very first time I moved across the country. So if you're wondering about my 3 times, I moved from Florida to California in 2016. Then we moved back to Florida from California in 2020, end of 2020, due to some like family health crisis stuff. And then we moved back to San Diego in February of 2026. So the first time we did it, honestly, I just did a bunch of research online. So that was 10 years ago. And I called a couple companies, got a couple quotes. And the one I liked the most was Coleman Allied. So not a sponsor, not an ad. It hasn't always been perfect, but it's always worked. And what I most liked is just their communication, which for me is just really important. Managing all these logistics, and I need people I can easily talk to, easily trust, know that they're on it. And I just really liked communicating with them, and that was really important to me. And they just kind of also handled everything, and that I really loved. So they handled packing, which I often need, and they handle obviously the moving, and then this time as well they also handled like shipping our cars. So I have a company kind of take almost everything here for me, and then me and my husband fly over. So we've done that every time. I know friends who have done the U-Haul, the road trip, and like made a road trip out of it. And I think that's really cool. And that's definitely, I think, a great idea if you're looking to do it in a way that's not super expensive, because it is many thousands of dollars to do it the other way. However, there's two big reasons I've never done the road trip thing. Number one is I get really motion sick in cars. So the idea of being in a car that long, it's not doable, but it's not a great experience for me. And then, time off work, I have a full-time job, you have so many PTO, and the idea of taking a week off PTO to essentially be nauseous for a week driving is just so sad to me compared to, taking that time off to actually have a restorative vacation. So I tend to not do that. And what's great about working remotely is I still work, like even on moving day, I'm able to still work because I just keep the internet going. They pack up everything, move, and I'm just like working from my kitchen bar. So that is really, really nice. But yeah, I have them do everything. So called them, they have someone come by and look at all your stuff, and then they give you a quote, and then you just book the day, and like, that's it. And I have really enjoyed that, really loved it. The only big difference, and where it gets interesting logistics wise, is you don't know when your stuff's gonna come. So obviously if you take it yourself, the huge benefit is like, you're gonna get there and you're gonna have your stuff just like you would in any sort of closer move. But when you move across the country, if you do it this way, like I've done it, when you get to, in my case, California, like you don't have your stuff and you don't know when it's arriving. They give you a window, but it's like anywhere from a week to 2 weeks. And you don't know, they call you 24 hours ahead and they're like, okay, your stuff's coming. So there's a lot of ways you could do this. You could just get an Airbnb and just live normally until your stuff comes. But I have never done that. The best way I can, tell you, and it's not even like a money thing as much as when I move somewhere, I just want to be in my home because I'm paying for it, because I typically have my leases overlap within like a day. So it's really, and I rent. And so I love that because it's really easy when you do your address change to like have the date of when your address is going to switch over. So I have the place by the time I move, and I just want to be in it. For me, when I moved across the country, it's, especially when I moved to California, is because I really want to be here and I picked a place I really, really love. And so I just want to live in it. So it's the only kind of camping I really do is I camp in my empty apartments when I move across the country, or empty house when we rented a house when we moved back to Florida. And I love it. I always think it's a great time. One of the other questions people asked was like, how do you make decisions about what you're going to take versus what you're going to replace? Someone also asked me like, why don't you just go and then like replace everything? Because honestly, for the price that I pay to move everything, I probably could like buy all new stuff instead. But, honestly, the first thing I thought of when I, in addition to the art that I love, is I told my friend, I was like, yeah, but the thing is you can't really see it very well. I was like, I have this black and white dresser. It's the first piece of expensive furniture I ever bought, and I love it with all my heart, and it's coming with me for the rest of my life. So that was one answer. But anyway, I do think, there are some things I like donate before I move. I do a ton of decluttering before I move. And then there are some things I do like to replace. So one thing that's always good to replace when you move across the country is a mattress, because then you have something to sleep on when you arrive. You don't have to do the air mattress thing. So my plan this time, I had just gotten a new mattress not too long ago, so I didn't need a new mattress. So instead I was like, but you know what I do want? I do want a new couch in my office that can double as a bed. So for people who want to come and stay with us, some friends who we've offered to like come stay with us if they want to come visit us in San Diego. So my office can kind of double as a guest room. And so I was like, I will get a sofa bed delivered right like about the day we move, so that we'll have this to sleep on until our stuff gets here, and then I'll have this new couch. So donated my old one, got this new one the day before we land, or no, actually, sorry, the day we landed, I got a notification that it was shipping order was like back ordered or delayed or something, and it now wasn't going to come for 3 weeks. So I did have to emergency order an Amazon air mattress, and it came in this like locker room of our apartment, and I couldn't get into it because my new key fob for my apartment, I learned later, takes 24 hours to like activate. So that was interesting, but luckily a maintenance guy hadn't left yet and he let me in. And so I got our air mattress at the last minute, and so, you know, made it work. But I have, I kind of plan it all out ahead of time. I have these like grocery lists as well, like, so when I get here, here's the things I need to get. And then like I pack like towels and a couple things, just like, what do I need to live in my apartment? And then I always ship like, you know, a picnic blanket and some like beach chairs, things that I can use later, but that allowed me to kind of just live in the space. And then I worked from coffee shops and things like that. And then obviously got our Wi-Fi set up right away. So that's kind of how I like to do it. I do camping, and then your cars come, similar thing. It's like you get a window, and then 24 hours, it's like, okay, your car is going to be here at this time. And then they, you know, those trucks, burp, 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 that have all the cars. Our 2 cars traveled on that. And then, yeah, we got our cars. Pets is another thing people have asked a lot about. My first 2 cross-country moves were with my beloved dog, Stanley. So we moved him to San Diego, and then we moved him back to Florida. And unfortunately, he passed away before we moved back. He died of cancer in June. And I miss him a lot, and I wish he was here. And we had been planning on moving back, and I was really hoping to bring him back. But yeah, he died last year, so we didn't bring him back, and I would have loved to do that. But I will say, you know, it was easier. It was easier. I would have much rather done the hard part to have him with me. But it was easier to not also be moving a pet. That added a whole other level of complication, but it wasn't doable. It was just a whole other layer that we didn't have to do this time. And honestly, you know, I wanted a puppy pretty soon after Stanley died. I didn't know I was going to be this kind of person. You just don't, I guess you don't really know how you're going to handle losing your dog until it happened. Because I certainly didn't know how I would handle it, and I didn't know how hard it would be for me. And I thought I would kind of just have one dog and that would be it. And after losing Stanley, I quickly realized I'm one of those people who like, no, I need a dog. I need to live with a dog. I don't like living without a dog. I think it's terrible. So I was like, I need a dog. It won't be Stanley, you know, nothing could replace him, but I was like, I need an animal in my life. I mean, look at my tattoos. They're all animals aside from some flowers back here. But I was like, I need to live with an animal. I need a dog. But I knew we were moving, and I was like, you know, I don't want to move a dog across the country again if I don't have to. So I'm going to wait as hard as it is and get a puppy once we move. So stay tuned for that. So we're here. So anyway, but the first time we did it, I had someone who was Stanley's trainer and who he stayed with often. I paid her, and I kind of did this custom thing because you could pay her to board and that kind of thing. And I was like, hey, can I pay you to take care of Stanley for 2 weeks so we can get moved, get settled. Also, we needed his stuff to arrive before we could have him. So she took care of him, and then I paid her to kind of fly him to us. So that was wonderful. And then he came to us that way. But in 2020, dogs couldn't fly on airplanes in the same way that they could at the before, because there were a lot of just extra rules. And so that was interesting. So I was like, oh my gosh, are we gonna have to do the road trip? I remember my vacation time was like even pretty limited then. So I was like, I don't even know if can take off the time, and I cannot work in a car, you know, in terms of motion sick. I can't even look. I have to like look straight ahead the whole time. So I was like, I don't know what to do. Luckily, so what I did is I asked Stanley's breeder if they had any advice, because I was like, breeders probably have to send puppies all over the place sometimes, so maybe they'll have other ideas. And they had this service that they recommended to me. I cannot remember the name because it was so long ago, but it was a service that, you know, takes dogs across the country in an RV. It was very expensive, but it still brings me joy. Like, I still feel like I got my money's worth from that experience. Obviously, to get Stanley across the country, it was just the best way for us to do that. But those pictures still bring me so much joy. Stanley was like living his best rock star life. Like literally the RV pulled up to like a grocery store parking lot, and they let the dogs like free range, hang out. They play like fetch with them in the whole RV. It's all open, and they send you pictures all along the way. So like Stanley had a road trip across America with other dog friends. The women who ran this RV were so wonderful and so lovely. It was just like a dream. I have pictures of him like there's still like that bed in the very back, you know, which I think of as like if a rock star is touring, they get that room. So like they'd send me pictures of like Stanley just chilling on the bed with like 2 other dogs, just like having a great time. He also rode shotgun a couple times. I have video of him like playing fetch in the RV. So that was so fun to watch. I still get so much joy out of those pictures and telling people about that. So that's how he came back to Florida in style. But I think the key is just figuring out how to get your stuff prepped for your pet before the pet gets here. I have some friends moving to San Diego soon, and they have 2 cats. And so I think what they're doing is also really smart, is one of them is flying early and is like gonna set everything up and like just get new cat stuff, and then the other partner is flying with the cats. So then by the time they arrive, all of their stuff will be ready for them. So I thought that was pretty smart. Choosing a place to live, someone asked about. We always do a trip out, like an apartment hunting trip. I'm a renter. I personally love renting. I might buy a house one day, but it's never been a huge priority for me, so I can't speak to that part of it. That might be more complicated. But for renting, we just always, like 2 months out, we will go to the place where we want to move, and we spend a weekend or longer if needed. But usually we've always been able to get it done in a weekend, where we just go on apartment tours all over and see where we want to live and see what's available. So, I mean, it's really as simple as that. And we've always found a place in those tours. And in some cases, we will like hone in on, okay, we like these 3 apartment complexes best. And then if something's not available exactly when we want it, we might not sign a lease on that trip, but we will decide, okay, this is what we want. This is what we want to prioritize. And then as the move date gets closer, because we have so many options, we feel pretty comfortable, because I picked a move date for this one before I had a place, which maybe sounds crazy, but I just knew that there were so many apartments I was open to living in. There was so much availability. I knew something would be available, but there wasn't anything exactly what we wanted at the time we wanted yet. So we kind of waited until we didn't sign a lease until like, I think 3 or 4 weeks before our move. So that's me. I'm so glad we did it that way, because the place that we ended up getting was just everything I could have hoped for and more. It was the number one complex that I really wanted. So I could have like signed a lease beforehand, but it wouldn't have been exactly what I wanted. So I wanted to wait and see if I didn't have to compromise, if something would open up, and it did. So something opened up in our price range with a garage. Having a garage in California has been like the greatest luxury I can imagine. We have surfboards, all our beach stuff. Because, you know, one thing, especially if you're moving Florida to California, and because we really love living by the beach, that was part of why we wanted to move to San Diego. I'm not like on the beach, but you know, I'm a very short, like 7-minute drive from the beach. So typically you prepare to kind of live a little smaller if you want to stay paying similar to what you were paying. So we're not paying that much more in rent than we were in Florida. It's just in Florida we had like a 3rd bedroom, and now we just have 2, but we also have a garage. So I've just been blown away by the space that we have, what we were able to find. And so, oh my God, I love it so much. Our place faces west, so there's a little bit of a sunset vibe. And honestly, I feel very confident saying this is my favorite apartment that I've ever had. I just am so in love with it. And it's, you know, moving across the country is really difficult, but also so flipping worth it. So yeah, I love it so much. Those were most of the questions on moving. If you have any more, feel free to ask them in the comments or DM me on Instagram at IsaAdney, and I would be happy to share what I know. Again, not an expert. There are so many ways to move across the country. This is just one way. This is just how I do it. But if you have any questions, let me know. I will say it is really hard, but also every time I've done it, it's also so satisfying. Dare I say fun? Like, there are parts that are so not fun, but it is an adventure. Like, it is fun in the sense of just that excitement of doing something kind of big and moving somewhere new, and hopefully moving somewhere that you really want to move. And if anything, if there's anywhere, I guess I would leave you in the moving section of this, if there's anywhere you've ever wanted to move and you've been just like, oh, that feels too big or too overwhelming, I hope this is at the very least a reminder that, like, it is absolutely possible. And there are so many ways to do it. And I'm sure you could look up more videos, read stuff online, but I would say don't let the fear of like those logistics hold you back, because it's also really satisfying. One thing I will say is every time I've moved across the country, and it's only escalated every time, is once you've done it, there is one of those things where like you kind of feel like, oh my gosh, what else? I can do anything. You kind of feel like a superhero a little bit, like a rock, like you're just like, whoa, I just like did that. I used to work at a gym, and one of the coaches used to always talk about why he loves his work is he, would help people with their fitness, but he said his favorite part was when he could tell as people would like reach their fitness goals, he said he could see something unlock with them where they're like, wait, if I could change this part about me, what else could I change? What else can I change in my life? What else can I do? And, there's so much in life that is outside of our control. Losing Stanley to cancer was really brutal in every way that you can imagine. But it also really, I don't know, it kind of did the opposite of what I'm explaining moving did. Is there was something about that it just felt like really discouraging, when those things that you can't control really take you down. It was kind of really nice to counteract that and kind of be like, wait, no, there are still things I can change. There are still things I can't control, even though, of course, there's so much that I can't. Speaking of Stanley, by the way, he died in June. I'm a writer, and I couldn't really write about it. I tried a little bit, and I just couldn't. I mean, that's why I'm vlogging. If you have watched any of my other vlogs, I started vlogging because I was like, I need some kind of creative outlet. Again, I think it was me pushing back against the way grief, for me anyway, made me feel like I couldn't control anything, like everything, like it was only at the mercy of everything. And I think creating makes you feel the opposite, but I couldn't write. And so I was like, well, let me just create a little project. I made a commitment to make 20 YouTube videos. I'm still going to do that. The idea that I thought I would make all 20 last year is hilarious. But that's, I don't know. I had no idea. Frankly, I just had no idea how hard grief would continue to be, and how sometimes I needed this to help me and sometimes I couldn't do it at all. But I'm still gonna make 20 videos, and so it'll take as long as it takes. But yeah, so I couldn't write, which was really hard. I tried and it wasn't working. Oh no, is my battery gonna die? Hold on. Okay, yeah, my battery's gonna die. I don't have another one. I do, but I just put it in and it's also dead. So yeah, I need to go find my charger. It's in a bag of the miscellaneous stuff I still need to store it. So this might just cut off at some point, and if it does, sorry. But basically what I was saying is once I moved, I finally was able to write about Stanley. I was like, I need to write this down. And I wrote something, and literally it was one of those things that I wrote in 10 minutes, but it also took me 10 months, at the same time. But I actually wrote it in 10 minutes, shared on Instagram, just as catharsis for me. Okay, it did die, but I found a battery with a little bit of juice, so I just needed to finish this. So yeah, I wrote it as catharsis for me and shared it, and it went kind of viral for me. It's the most viral anything I've ever written on the internet. And it died again. So I juiced it up for just a little bit longer so I could finish this little story. So this little piece went kind of viral for me, and it has just been one of the most beautiful experiences, honestly, I've ever had on the internet. Everyone's comments have been gorgeous, if not poetic, and it's just been so many people saying it's so, I don't know how this algorithm works, man, but it somehow sent it to people who had all just lost their dog, whose dog just got diagnosed with cancer. So it's just been this beautiful experience of everyone commenting their story about what they're going through. And one person DM'd me and said he loved the piece so much, and that he shared it. He was like, I'm gonna share it with my husband tonight because I just haven't known how to talk about how I'm feeling and what we're going through. And I'm gonna have him read it so that we can then talk about it. That was just the best thing I've ever received, I think. I am just so grateful that people have found this useful for their own grief journey, and I've just been able to, hopefully it seems like it's helping people kind of process. I think the line that probably resonated a lot with people. At least that's what I was guessing. I was telling a friend an audio message, and then people started actually referencing that line. So I was like, okay, I think I'm right. And it was the line, I wrote it down so I don't forget. I knew that dogs didn't last forever, but that knowledge didn't save me from falling apart. And so I think that is one of the ideas that traveled, because I think we obviously know dogs don't live as long as we wish they did. And I think sometimes it makes it feel then like, okay, well, you knew this, so you can be sad, but it just feels like this unspoken, like you're allowed to be more sad about certain things versus other things depending on the level of unexpectedness. And I don't know, it's just one of those things we don't talk about a lot, but I think this piece has just opened up a conversation, and I've just loved talking to everyone about the depth, because what I learned when Stanley got diagnosed with cancer is every time I talked to someone, that was the truth, that they were saying this was one of the hardest things that they had actually ever experienced, and one of the hardest losses. And I was like, okay, and maybe that's not true for everybody, but I was meeting all these people who were saying that, and then I also kind of found myself wanting to know what it was really like, and I was having those conversations one-on-one, and they were just such a comfort to me, even though it was so hard to hear. I didn't share this piece like for that reason. I wasn't like, here, I want to, pay that forward necessarily. It was just a writer sharing her feelings, because that's what we do to survive. But in hindsight, I've realized, oh my gosh, now I'm like paying that forward, all those wonderful people. So if you're one of those people, thank you so much. So many people helped me through the cancer diagnosis all the way up to now, and just processing this grief. And now I've have this whole community of strangers to talk to and process with, and just send virtual hugs back and forth, and just get to be less alone and honor that, yeah, this hurts, and also it was worth it. And honestly, to bring it full circle, moving has been like that too. So I'm so happy to be here. The fact that I finally was able to write after moving here gives me a lot of hope for what may happen with my writing.